Alan Wake 2 is a masterpiece. It's one of the most confident pieces of direction, design, and creativity that I've ever experienced in a video game. Not only does its layered storytelling elevate the genre it's in, but its presentation and the use of multimedia shakes up the whole idea of what video games can be. And on top of that, it is the most Finnish video game I've ever played, which just fills my heart with pride. But there is one problem: the game is really scary and I have zero tolerance for horror, which was a hurdle I had to get through, and the gameplay itself isn't anything revolutionary, but I don't know if it needs to be. But let's break all that down. This is the Alan Wake 2 takes place 13 years after the original game. Alan Wake, the tortured writer, is still trapped inside the mysterious dimension called the Dark Place, desperately trying to write his way out of this nightmarish version of New York and return to his wife Alice. Meanwhile, in the real world, FBI agent Saga Andersson with her partner Alex Casey are called to Bright Falls to investigate a string of sadistic ritual murders. The story is told through both Saga's and Alan's perspectives, and quickly both of them are wrapped in a whirlpool of fiction and reality, confusion and determination. There is always a risk with multiple protagonists, but Alan Wake 2 handles it perfectly. The story flows really well, and no matter what order you progress in it, everything makes sense, as much as things in these games are meant to make sense. The game's chapters are nice and concise, and they always manage to keep up the mysterious atmosphere and keep you guessing of what will happen next. Like in the first game, you can find pages of manuscripts that potentially reveal something that is about to happen, but they never feel like spoilers, as the storytelling is built around them in a meaningful way. The layers of the story keep shifting, and it sometimes felt like it was losing me, but then instantly pulled me back with a twist or a revelation. The story is elevated by the great cast. Alan Wake's struggles are portrayed beautifully by Ilkka Villi and Matthew Porretta, and Saga's determination and pain is brought alive by Melanie Lippard.
Calm down. I'm gonna need you to take a breath.
He's changed the story. The dark presence. We must stop it before...
Easy now.
Other standouts for me were David Harewood as Mr. Door, James McCaffrey as the voice of Alex Casey, Jessica Brady as Rose, and Peter Frantzen as the Koskela brothers. Outside of the main story, there are some interesting side stories to discover if you explore and listen closely. My absolute favorite was the radio show with Pat Main, as there was surprising amount of emotion and thought put into it. I've never played a game that handles themes like senility and the depopulation of small towns. It's never the focus of the story, but it makes the world feel real and struck me emotionally. The story in itself would easily carry Alan Wake 2 on its own, but what makes the experience feel so unique is the way they present the story using creative and impressive audiovisual tricks. First of all, the game looks absolutely gorgeous, and I wasn't even able to play it with all the path tracing and other advanced graphical features that are available with the correct hardware. Even still, it's probably the best looking game I've ever played. The way light and shadows bring the different environments alive is spectacular. And then they start to bring in the live action elements, and it transforms the experience into something new and exciting. I already really enjoyed the way Remedy used live action in Control, and this feels like the natural evolution of that. Seeing visions of Alex Casey seamlessly blended into the game world, or watching the advertisements or the talk show segments never felt out of place.
Are you okay there, my friend? You look like you've been cooped up in the writer's room for a few too many years.
This is exactly how I feel.
I think part of it is that the graphical quality of the character models is so high that the transition between the live action and the rendered characters doesn't feel jarring, and there is real purpose for each use of the live action. And the creativity doesn't stop with the visual tricks, and the use of audio and music is also out of this world. I absolutely love the different ways the music is used in this game. There is the creepy score filling out the atmosphere with the rest of the audio audio design. Then there are the so-called chapter songs that play after each chapter, letting you digest the things you just experienced. And most importantly, there is the diegetic music actually present in the world through the returning artists, old gods of Asgard, and of course Ahti.
Champion of light,
Catchy, right?
herald of darkness.
I don't want to spoil anything, but there are musical moments that rival the stage battle from the first Alan Wake and the ashtray maze from Control. And the Madmen at Remedy also included a 20-minute live-action short film fully in Finnish that most players are probably going to skip. And that leads us to the part I'm probably the most biased about. Alan Wake 2 made me so proud to be a Finn, as the game is probably the most Finnish game of all time if we exclude jokey Finland simulators like My Summer Car and the likes. To enjoy Alan Wake 2, you don't have to know anything about Finland, but if you do and know the language, it offers so much additional fun in many ways. One of the areas in the game, a small town called Watery, was founded by Finnish immigrants and have a Finland-themed community center and even a coffee-themed amusement park, going with the fact that the Finnish people drink the most coffee in the world. There are motivational posters in Finnish all around the world. There is an actual sauna, and there are even some traditional Finnish pastries called Karjalan piirakka at every safe room. On the character side, we have the identical twins Jaakko and Ilmo Koskela, played by the famous Finnish actor Peter Frantzen. The characters ooze Finnishness in many ways, and they even introduce the audience to the Finnish drinking culture and a thing called kalsarikännit through one of their advertisements, which was wild to see.
Of kalsarikännit, drinking at home alone in your underwear with no intentions of going out.
It's not sad if it's intentional.
And who could forget our favorite janitor from Control, Ahti, who appears in few different points throughout the game. Once again played by Marte Suosalo, Ahti keeps talking in Finnish idioms directly translated to English and partly in fully Finnish, making some nonsensical dialogue if you do not understand Finnish. And there is so much more, and all of it just made me smile and added another layer of enjoyment for me. The only obstacle in my enjoyment of Alan Wake 2 was the horror. I've never been able to handle horror, so I wasn't sure how I was going to get through this game. Being scared and anxious is the worst feeling ever, and I don't want to feel that while playing video games. For horror enjoyers, it won't be an issue, but for me, I was really struggling to get through the first few hours of the game, as the moment-to-moment gameplay was just filled with anxiety and stress, with the tense atmosphere, shadowy figures, and the occasional jump scare flashes. I did end up growing some tolerance to it, but still not enough to actually enjoy it. It also didn't help that the gameplay itself wasn't anything special. The game borrows a lot from other survival horror games like Resident Evil, with its equipment and limited inventory systems. They work well and the shooting feels good, but it's not something I particularly love, except for the puzzles. Alan Wake 2 has some of the best puzzles in gaming that were a joy to crack. Adding to the gameplay is the clever idea of making the menus into a physical space. Saga has her mind place where she is able to profile people and add clues to her investigation board to reveal new things, as well as look at collectibles and upgrading weapons. Alan also has his writer's room for similar purposes, but he can also use his plot board to change his surroundings to match the story he is writing and to progress forward. So there is things to like about the gameplay, but just not that much of it. The biggest problem with the gameplay is the slow movement for me. It feels realistic, but it also feels a bit disconnected when you are chased by a physical manifestation of darkness and Alan just gently jogs to escape it. In any other game, the horror and the gameplay issues might have been a deal breaker for me, but not this time, because everything else is on another level that the problems became minor inconveniences. With that, I can easily say that Alan Wake 2 is a masterpiece. It's one of the most confident pieces of direction, design and creativity that I've ever experienced in a video game. Not only does its layered storytelling elevate the genre it's in, but its presentation and the use of multimedia shakes up the whole idea of what video games can be. And on top of that, it is the most Finnish video game I've ever played, which just fills my heart with pride. But there is one problem: the game is really scary and I have zero tolerance for horror, which was a hurdle I had to get through, and the gameplay itself isn't anything revolutionary, but I don't know if it needs to be, because I've come to a realization that it's not a game, it's multimedia experience.
Some say